Chapter 30, Batgirl, Issue 1. Stephanie sighed, leaned back, and pulled off her headphones. The document on her laptop, labeled People Cam Graham Hates, was 2.5 pages long with bullet points. After an hour of listening to his digital sermons, she felt exhausted. She considered asking for Tim's help to hack the WWJD radio website so she could bypass the paywall, but reluctantly gave in to the $10 per month giving model, which allowed her to listen to all of Graham's recorded ramblings. She would cancel the minute her studying was over, and Bruce would probably pay her back for it if it was really an issue. Next to the People Cam Graham Hates document was another full of information copied and pasted from his online biography, and peppered with Stephanie's own notes. Cameron Robert Graham was born in Decatur, Georgia, to Pentecostal parents. He studied radio and television in college, though he did not graduate. He received his license to pastor at 22 and married a college sweetheart named Rachel. Though he made some distance from his Pentecostal upbringing, some of its elements did still turn up in his largely non-denominational style of preaching. He and his wife had 8 children, 4 biological, 4 adopted. On that ground, at least, Stephanie figured he deserved some credit. At least he put his money where his mouth was in terms of adoption support. In the midst of that thought, a tiny fear awoke within her, and she zoomed in on one of his family portraits on the website. None of his girls looked the way she did at their respective ages between 2 and 12. Stephanie sighed with relief. Wherever her long-lost daughter was, she wasn't with him. Most of the rest of Stephanie's research felt almost predictable. Graham preached in California and Chicago before he made his way to Gotham. It was his style to spread his liturgy around traditionally liberal or crime-ridden areas to try serving as a holy shot in the arm. He would stick around Gotham for a few years and would take up work in the Wellspring of Hope Church over by Sadie's neighborhood once construction was completed. Graham certainly wasn't swimming in donations and taxpayer purchases like some of his contemporaries, but a Google Maps search of his home indicated he was still well off. A few of his sermons included talk of planting monetary seeds for greater rewards later in life. Those probably paid for his house, car, and children. "And my dad used to be a game show host." Stephanie wrote the remark as she said it. "He could probably get you similar results." The 3rd floor of the Gotham University Library was always on the edge of emptiness, even on its most active days. With its quiet atmosphere, sterile white walls, and rows of reference material, it became the closest place to a home for Stephanie since the bunker had to be abandoned. Jordana was giving her crap about how she suddenly turned up in their room again after sporadic ins and outs the rest of the semester, and, Stephanie suspected, spread some talk she was sleeping around. "Whatever!" Stephanie used her teeth to tear into a bag of Funyuns. "If they didn't want us eating up here, they shouldn't have vending machines by the bathrooms." As she munched from the bag, her mind wandered back to Cassandra. "And apparently even my best friend thinks I'm a slut now. Maybe she and Jordana should start hanging out." Stephanie took in another deep breath and opened her pictures folder. Between collections of psychedelic backgrounds and blurry, low-res photos from concerts was one entitled WMGT, short for Wayne Manor Get-Togethers. She double-clicked it. Within were dozens of photos across a few different nights. A few were public gatherings, others were just for friends and family, by invitation only. There was one she'd used as a profile picture for months of her and Tim as they acted like they were animals roaring at one another. It wasn't flattering, but it was funny. "Cassie's mad at me because of you, virgin boy." Stephanie rested her head on an open palm. "It's not like I fought or argued with you or anything. I asked if you were up for it, and you sounded like you'd been waiting forever." A few pictures later were her and Cassandra, arms across one another's shoulders. Stephanie's grin was big and goofy. Cassandra looked as if she was trying everything in her power to emulate it. I can't stay mad at you." In the next picture were the 3 of them, along with Sadie at Cassandra's side. A little smudge of pink lipstick was on one of Cassandra's cheeks. "I know you're hurting. I know both of you are, even if neither of you wants to admit it." Sadie and Stephanie only communicated a few times a week, mostly via text or IMs just to check in. Stephanie did like to talk. The two were still friends, but there remained a certain awkwardness to the action. There was a message from Sadie at one point that said, "I tried giving her a call, but she hasn't returned it. I think she might have blocked me." Stephanie replied, "You could just go over there, you know. Tim and me could help give you an excuse." No, I don't think that'd be right. I broke it off. If she's ignoring me, I gotta respect it. If we're gonna talk, it has to be because she decides she's ready to reach back out. Stephanie made it as far as writing back, is this a hope you're feeling better talk, or a I miss you and I want to get back together talk, before she sighed and deleted the message. It was in her nature to wonder, but she decided space on the matter would be better. Tim didn't think it made sense to attribute much of Cassandra and Sadie's breakup to Cameron Graham's influence. Cassandra only began her deep dive after their separation, and chastity was, indeed, a major teaching in the Catholic Church. Still, Graham would celebrate the damage that occurred if he had any knowledge of it, and he poisoned her best friend's mind with his anger and disdain. If there was some skeleton in his closet, Stephanie felt determined to find it. As she shut the pictures folder, Stephanie pulled up the web page again. The dates on Graham's sermons were only visible after opening a particular MP3. They were instead arranged by topics, which she slowly slogged through in search of anything incriminating, or at least two-faced. She'd already listened to various preachings on marriage, God and sexuality, and the Bible and prosperity. The deception of false idols seemed like the next logical step, however painful it was sure to be. Stephanie groaned audibly at the first MP3 labeled, Not So Different? Islam's False Promise. She slipped her headphones back on, shut her eyes tight, and braced for the worst. The most cunning of Islam's deceivers would have you believe they're not so different from us, that they worship a different interpretation of the same God. But our deliverer and their Allahs and their Muhammads could not be less alike. Even if they aren't all foolish enough to attack us, there's no such thing as a moderate Muslim. The same way our deliverance is our faith, theirs is attacking anyone who does not see their extremism. No peaceful person has any place practicing that faith. None. Graham went on for several minutes about violence in the Middle East, terrorism, and a call for more extreme border protections. Stephanie was by no means an expert in her own faith, let alone any other one, but the way Graham droned on and on about what sounded like fractured quotes taken out of context and grandiose conspiracy theories made her confident he wasn't discussing any factual information. If there was a single person in the United States actually trying to impose Sharia law, they were unaware of the arduous process large-scale law change required. Maybe Graham dropped out of college before he'd ever taken a civics class. As he continued to ramble, Stephanie buried her face in her arms and looked down at the desk. And it's truly unfortunate that, in their so-called crusade for tolerance, the faithless have made it easier for new extremists to be born. They demand we show respect for a faith that radicalizes its young men and attacks women. If prayer and worship were still permitted in schools, perhaps we could take the first step in saving those poor children, who will only be new, violent enemies to our way of life tomorrow. Stephanie paused the video and let out a muffled scream into the desk. The sheer obliviousness on display was giving her a headache. She couldn't take any more. It was time to be done with research for the night. It was only as she unplugged her headphones and gave the webpage a last, passing glance that she froze. Graham's rant was dated November 8th, 4 days before. Stephanie straightened in her seat, opened a search bar, and entered Gotham Mosque kidnapping. Just as Bruce had described in the encrypted files he sent to her and Tim every day, he and Cassandra interfered with a kidnapping of 10 men, women, and children from a mosque on Avery Street. The stories were dated November 10th, which meant the abductions themselves must have occurred the night before, the 9th. Cameron Graham posted a seriously angry rant about Muslims less than 48 hours before a gang of criminals Batman confirmed were the Reapers kidnapped a bunch of them. Thoughts flooded Stephanie's mind as she stared at the date. The first, and to her knowledge, only interaction between Cassandra and Graham personally occurred the same night Lipov and the Oddments first attacked. According to what she'd read of Cassandra and Shiva's conversation, Lipov was so obsessed with tormenting his targets that some escaped before he could kill them. And Graham was the total antithesis of Cassandra's own beliefs, as if he personally reveled in making her faith look selfish. Was Graham part of something bigger? Had Lipov brought an aide to Gotham with him besides the Oddments? Hang on, stop. Stephanie leaned forward and clutched her head again. Did that theory really hold any weight? Was she suggesting Lipov was waiting for Graham and Cassie to bump into one another by happenstance, so Graham could say a few mean things before she and the Oddmians fought for the first time? Wasn't Lipov trying to kill her and David when he led them to the final offer? A night Graham had no part in? It didn't appear Graham was doing anything but business as usual over the tenure Cassandra spent in the cast. And what sense did it make to drop a clue about a kidnapping where anyone could hear it? Dad left clues for the police and Bruce to find. Gotham draws stupid, showy criminals like moths to flames. Stephanie set her hand back on top of the laptop, intent on closing it for the evening, but paused to enter a last note in her document. If she made the case to Tim and Bruce that Graham was in league with Lipov, they'd say it sounded like a bad conspiracy theory. Still, a little more investigation couldn't hurt. People Cam Graham hates. David and Cassie Cain?